Good, good, good. All right, I hope you're doing well. I'm Keith Mathis. I see that we've got a lot of people who have signed in, who maybe this is the first time you've ever seen me or met me or anything like this. I'm based out of Springfield, Missouri. So this is our 31st year in providing project management training, and so it's good to have you on board with this. Today we're going to be talking about. Let me get this going here. Everything works before everybody signs on, and then all of a sudden nothing works. There it goes. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about creating an innovative project management office. This is kind of an interesting topic. Last year, we spent 2 days doing training of Ukrainian project managers from around the country of Ukraine to help them be ready for a renovation and being able to bring their particular country back once the war stops. And so it was amazing how many people were interested in this from Ukraine. And so this obviously is a much more streamlined version of that. It's not 2 days in length, but there are some things I think that are interesting for us as we look at creating an innovative PMO. And I think PMOs are going through a change right now. And so I'll pick up on that several times as we talk about different pieces of this. So let's start off with talking a little bit about the benefits of a project management office. Many people, the only reference they have of a project management office is it's an office down at the end of the hall. They go down there, they provide templates, they talk to the people a little bit about their project, but that project management office maybe doesn't have a lot of power, doesn't have a lot of power, doesn't have a lot of influence on how projects are run. Those project management offices do provide some value, but overall, what you're going to see is that project management offices are shifting, and they're shifting to where they actually can become and are becoming a C player, a C executive sitting around the table when the strategic plans are happening. So let's talk about just a standardized project management office. One of the things that they will look at and deal with is what's called standardized processes. So the PMO can establish and enforce standardized project management processes, methodologies, best practices. And so this, even the low-level office can establish these. The problem you have sometimes on the lower-level PMO is they don't have the authority. So they have no authority to be able to make anybody do anything, and they don't have any authority really to collect the information a lot of times. They're almost like an ad hoc group that you can talk to at certain times. Resource optimization is another piece that's really, really good for them. And the reason behind that is that, once again, if we are doing a project management office the right way, then we are coordinating resources. Many of you struggle with this right now. You have resources for your projects, maybe in your agency, your department, your division, whatever you want to call it. And those project managers maybe don't go outside of that. Maybe you're a PMO just for one agency, department, or something like that. And so what happens is you have limited resources who are doing just that one type of project. So that's true. That could be true forever in your organization. But we are seeing such a massive shift, and some of it's being driven by AI, and some of it is being driven by executive management, looking at ways to be able to make a PMO become much more of a macro view rather than a micro view of everything. The third area that makes a difference is going to be risk management. The PMO understands what's happening with risk in their particular industry, their particular type of projects. And so they can proactively approach that with risk management, risk strategies that might be a little different than what would be maybe at another company or in another industry. So they already have some insights into that. The other piece is going to be that strategic alignment. Those of you who are at the C, are a C executive at your organization, and you're sitting at the table when you're coming up with the strategic plans, then you already know the value of this, because strategic alignment allows you to be able to start with the strategic plan and work all the way down to the project. And that means that every project is running a component or a piece of that strategic plan. And so you're seeing project management offices jump on board because of this particular reason here. The other thing that you'll see is improved decision-making. That's going to be a huge benefit too, because once again, we know what's happening with all of the projects of the organization. We know what vendors to use or what vendors not to use sometimes in some of these situations. And so we have better decision-making. Management as a whole understands what's happening with the projects. And so we're able to take a little bit more of a macro view rather than a micro view of it. And so that allows us to be able to have some diversity in our solutions that maybe we haven't had before. Your decision makers has a better understanding. Even your project managers have a better understanding because they're hearing from other people. You don't have project managers just in pockets. IT project managers, and here are people who are doing other type of projects over here. Here are people for the business line and the customer side. And so everybody's kind of cocooned in their little spot. That can actually work against us on using resources and also with solutions. The other thing is going to be knowledge management. So a PMO can facilitate the sharing and reuse of project-related knowledge, lessons learned, best practices, and this is a wealth of information. And of course, if you have read PMBOK 7th edition and you have heard anything about the changes that PMI made to the new test, a new PMP test, you know that knowledge management has become a huge piece of this, transitioning, training the people, transferring the knowledge. And this is one of the reasons why the PMO is looking at some of these things is how can we get our knowledge from our industry and our projects into our people so that we don't make the same mistakes. And that's what you're trying desperately to do. The other side of this is going to be enhanced communication. How can we increase communication about project management, the do's and the don'ts of project management? And so the PMO can improve communication in so many ways because, once again, they're kind of like the hub of that communication source. If we give them enough authority, they're the hub, and they can actually delve out some of that communication and inform other pockets of what's happening or not happening with some of the projects that the other people might not know. They just don't know because of the type of project or the piece of the project that they do. And so it allows it to have more congruency. And then, of course, continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is going to be a huge piece, as we already know. And the reason behind this is because this is something that every organization should be doing. All of you that are involved in Lean Six Sigma, I know I'm speaking to the choir with a big chunk of you here, because this is your lifestyle too. Whether you're running a project or whether you're running manufacturing, it's how can we improve? How can we get better? How can we streamline the process and make it better? All of these are part of, once again, even a bigger emphasis with PMI since 2022. But the point of this is, can we get better? And that's what you're trying desperately to do, is not keep doing the same old, same old. So to help you a little bit with this, let me give you 5 stages of a project management office. You can determine what level you are, but the goal of this, if at all possible, is for you and management to be able to work together to where you're moving up the level, okay? So let's start with just a normal project management office, the basic PMO, the standard PMO, the advanced, as well as the center of excellence. And so you can kind of decide where you think you are in this particular level. Well, let's start with the beginning of this. And so beginning project management. So maybe you're an organization, you don't even have a PMO. This is the reason why you're on here. You're thinking, I just want to see, is there advantages to it? There are. But once again, you've got to be able to show value to management in order for you to be able to have longevity there, or you just look like an expenditure. So you've got to be able to make things better, make projects more successful, and so forth. So you'll notice we start with just starting off with a PMO. This PMO is going to be very low level and not have a lot of authority. They might have a project manager that works for their group, but it's going to have some limitations to it. Then you'll notice that it goes up to the basic PMO, which will be a little bit more formal, a little bit more authority. The standard PMO and above, you start seeing some structure in most project management offices. You have templates, you have policies, you have processes, you know what's happening with the projects. You might even actually have to sign off on the projects, and so they might be funneling those projects down from this point forward. The lower ones don't necessarily have to do that at all. A manager might want it, or an executive might want something, and they might have the project going before you ever even find out that it's happening. And so that's how disconnected sometimes they are. And then obviously the ultimate that you see is a center of excellence. This organization, when they are a center of excellence, they're taking everything they do and they look at it through project eyes. And by doing that, what they're doing is they're saying, you know what? We are so committed to project management and it's so efficient in trying to get the outputs we want that we're going to run all of our projects like this. And so that team and that group all start looking at it through those eyes. And that means that you definitely have a seat at the table with the C-suite executives because you are running something of value to them. If the lower it goes and the further down the steps it goes, it can be perceived as not bringing a lot of value. And so that's one of the detriments you get into with the PMO. Even though you bring value, it might not be viewed as value when you're looking at this. All right, so let's break it apart and do a little bit more of a deep dive for you, okay? So first off, stage one, project office. This is the lowest level we were talking about. So you might have one or more projects a year, one or more project managers that works with you. Projects are not really the big thing. The project you do once a year might be huge though, but you're not running a bunch of other projects. And so you have a little bit of oversight capabilities. You work on one project, and so you monitor cost, schedule, resources, but it's only on one or two projects. So it's very, very small compared to what many of you actually do in real life. Stage two, basic PMO. So project oversight, process control is definitely starting to become part of this level. You provide standard and repeatable PM methodology. So you've got a methodology that probably is your preference in your type of industry. So you might be using waterfall for the most part, or you might be using Scrum or Agile because it seems to fit your type of projects. You might even have an actual title of someone there who's called a program manager, and you might even have some part-time PMO staff who's working on this. So once again, you see that next level is a little more functional, a little more formal as well. Stage three, this is going to be a standard PMO. From this point on, you start having more authority, and you start having a little bit more input. Maybe not as much, obviously, as the center of excellence, but you're going to have more. So you have project oversight as part of it. Project control and support is going to be a component of this. You establish the capability, the infrastructure to support and govern cohesive project management. You might be providing brown bag lunch for people for training. You might be bringing training in every year to be able to keep your people updated and so forth. But the point is, you are starting to have an influence on the culture of project management from this stage forward, for sure, because once again, you're there, you're working with more than just a project, you're working with multiple projects. Also, these multiple projects you're working with, there might be someone that's running this. They might be the director or senior program manager. You might even have full-time PMO staff working with a lot of part-time PMO staff. So that might be something very common for you. Stage four, advanced PMO. At this stage, you definitely have some influence on your organization and on all the projects. And so you provide oversight, process control. And so you look at an integrated, comprehensive project management capability of your people. All of your people that are coming to work and who are working on projects are probably being trained in some type of project management methodology or some type of project management training program that you're taking them through. And so you're using that as your foundation. And then what's happening is you're starting to even contribute to them in key pieces, depending on what they do with additional trainings. In the actual project management environment, you're absolutely running multiple projects, multiple project managers. You might have multiple program managers at this stage, a PMO director, and so you've got some dedicated PMO staff. Now, that staff does not necessarily mean that they're running projects. That staff could be running more audits that we'll talk about in a moment and overseeing the projects to make sure no project is off kilter and is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So stage four, advanced PMO, you definitely have a lot of control, and you probably have a seat, or at least a part-time seat, at the C-suite of executives when you're talking about projects at this stage. And then stage five, which is looked at as the highest level, this is your center of excellence. This is obviously the biggest and strongest level of all. You're a C-suite executive. You're sitting there talking with all of management at this level. Management's making decisions. You're giving impressions and decisions on how this could be run in a project management way. You've got a lot of oversight, process control. You're managing continuous improvement in all of this. And so you're looking at how to be able to shift that organization from where it is now to where you want it to be based on projects. And so this is going to be your most mature organization. In this environment, you've got multiple programs, vice president or director of project manager. You see how the height of that role or that title. You've got dedicated PMO technical staff. It's an enterprise support staff, so you're looking normally at the company overall. And so you will find companies that will be like this. But let me just give one piece of warning on this. You can be a very powerful PMO and never reach this stage. You can be a very powerful PMO at stage 3 and stage 4 and never reach this stage and have a powerful influence on every project and on what your organization is doing. All right, so let's break it down a little bit and talk a little bit about the project management methodology. Now, as you know, there are 3 main methodologies right now in the project management world. Many of us have cut our teeth on traditional waterfall. And so everything's waterfall. We're going to initiate, we're going to plan, we're going to execute, we're going to monitor and control, and we're going to close that project. So nothing wrong with that. Traditional has been around forever, and that is how most of us have been exposed. Some of you who came in on the product side or came in on the technology side maybe didn't do traditional waterfall. You maybe lived your life over on the Agile and the Scrum side, running sprints and iterations, doing product demos, working with a product owner. That's fine too, not a problem with that. The organizations that are exploding right now that you're seeing are starting to be able to deal with both of these. We can have traditional projects, 100% traditional, under the umbrella of a PMO, and that PMO monitors it as a traditional project. They also might even have an Agile or Scrum project, 100% Agile or Scrum, and they monitor it as Agile or Scrum. But this third category is the one that so many of you are already working in. As you know, you're in a hybrid deal. Part of it is going to be traditional, maybe a compliance and several of the places of approvals. And then you're running your actual execution. I'll show you what this looks like in a moment, in a hybrid manner. And then you might be closing it out very formal. And so the hybrid seems to be something that's exploded on the scene because traditional is too formal and Agile and Scrum is too loose. And so we were coming here in the middle some way to be able to come up with a hybrid. So let's take a look at it, make sure you understand what I'm talking about. So traditional waterfall, most of you have this down. You know what this is. So it starts off where business IT planning, strategic plan, business case, all of that is kind of looked at as pre-project. And so that's done to decide whether or not we're going to do a project in that area. And then what you see is you've got your initiation, your charter creation. And so your charter in many worlds, that's what says it is a project. And then you go into project planning. And so project planning is where we actually create the project plan. If you're on the traditional side, we create all the plan for the scope of work. If you're on the Agile side, then you know you're creating a product backlog that you're going to deliver in sprints. I'll show you that in a moment. And then we're going to execute. And then we're going to monitor and check the performance. And so execution, monitoring, controlling run simultaneously, because we start executing, then we start checking the performance instantly. And then when you finish, you're going to close out the project and knowledge transfer everything that you have over to the customer and lessons learned. And so that's what we call a traditional waterfall methodology. It's stair-stepped, and we deliver all of the project. Normally at the end is what we deliver this. On the hybrid methodology side, this has a lot of the components of Agile. So the first parts of this could be very similar. We have a charter that initiates it, and so it becomes a project at a charter. Even the plan might be a plan for the product backlog. And then when we get into execution, this is where you see the biggest difference. And so in execution, you're running multiple sprints to be able to deliver this. Now, let me just make sure you understand what I'm talking about. This is a 2 to 3 week or 4 week sprint. At the end of each sprint, we have something we're handing off to the customer for them to start using and start working with and giving us feedback. And then we plan with the product owner or the project manager, depending on how hybrid this is, and we come up with sprint number 2. And so that 2 to 4 week sprint, we hand something off to the customer again. So we're giving the customer features in piecemeal, okay? And so then at the end of all of these sprints, we also will have what's called a sprint demo. We normally have that at the end of the sprint. And so each sprint will have a sprint demo where we demonstrate to the customer the features, functionality, what we've done, and then they will start using those features or functionality to a small amount, giving us some feedback. Is it close? Is it not close? Is it right on target? And so that's what you're looking at when you're talking about a hybrid type situation. Now, monitoring and checking it might be a little different, might be the same as traditional, and closing out might be the same as traditional, and it'd be hybrid. Here's the thing about hybrid project management. You're deciding how hybrid it is. Nobody's dictating this to you. Many of the books that are out on this aren't worth anything. because they're trying to take a traditional project and make it all and call it hybrid in so many pieces, or they're trying to do it on the agile side and call it all hybrid. But there's so many ways that you can have a hybrid project. So you're calling what part of it is hybrid. And so I'll be recommending something to you in future webinars, a text that I've just ordered that is really, this author has it together on how this is. So hybrid is going to be very customized to your project. And then you'll have a retrospective. As you already know, a retrospective on the Scrum side is the same thing really as a lessons learned. And so the difference is that on Scrum or Agile, you're doing it at the end of each sprint as well. So we do a retrospective on sprint number 1. What did we learn? We use that in sprint 2, another retro, and another retro. So every time we finish a sprint, we do a retro, and then you'll do a retro at the end of the entire project. And so that will be something for you. So those are some of the components here. So there is nothing locked in that's just, here are the 5 processes you're going to use in every hybrid. Because all of our hybrids are so closely, so customized with everything. All right, so let's go a little further. So now you start looking at the establishing the basis of project management methodology. Many organizations who don't have a PMO and maybe are doing projects for the first time, I know some of you might be on here. I've talked to some folks just in the last few weeks who are trying to put some structure to it. And I think that's what Ukrainian project managers are trying to do. Their country's blown to pieces, and once the war settles, they're going to be building buildings as well as putting in infrastructure for their technology again. And some of these organizations have no PMO. But what you're trying to do is put some structure there to where you have the right type of methodologies for your projects. And so you're looking at the current practices, life cycles, the conducting methodology implementations, what's the best way and the fastest way to be able to do this. And there is no one way, as you already know. My way of doing it's going to be a little different than yours, and your culture at your organization might be the same type of company, different culture. It's going to be a different type of methodology as well, because you're going to have a lot more interaction with management than maybe another company has to have. And that's okay. There's not anything wrong with that. It's just different. And so the methodology is going to play a role as to how much freedom do you have in developing that methodology. And then preparing that methodology deployment, the PMO is actually dictating some of that methodology. Now, if you're doing traditional, you're going to have more resources for that because it's the oldest, but you also have less flexibility. And so that's the reason why people have a tendency to go back to that hybrid setting. As you prepare methodology deployment strategy, it provides you a roadmap for methodology design, development, implementation, maintenance. Many of you have covered this already with your organization or with your PMO. And if you don't have a PMO, you might still have the methodology in place. But here's the question: are your projects being successful? See, you can have all the methodologies in the world, as we all know, and yet your projects are still bombing at 65 to 75% failure rate. And so if we're talking about over budget, if we're talking about scope creep, if we're talking about past the due date, that's killing all of us with our resources. And so those things are what we're looking at is our project successful? If it's not being successful, then that methodology still maybe needs to be tweaked. And a lot of times we treat it as if it's the holy grail that can't be touched. And sometimes we do have to take a look at it. All right, so methodology deployment. We're looking at several pieces of this: the development responsibility statement, development approach, the platform, utilization, maintenance responsibility. So when you're looking at this, even though you bring in the methodology and you come up with a process, and this is the methodology that looks like it's going to work for us, one of the easiest things to do to be able to implement this is call it a pilot. If you're trying to do this in real life, call it a pilot. In the next 3 months or 90 days, we're going to implement this, but we're going to do it from a pilot standpoint. And so we're going to meet with the people who are in the middle of the project doing this. We're going to talk to the project managers or to the product owners and the customers. By calling it a pilot, it seems more temporary, and you're able to have more versatility. It's not, in other words, it's a work in progress. And that way people understand this is not the new process. This is a sample of what we're looking at, but we're going to tweak it. We're going to adjust it. And that allows you to hit and move that organization and move those processes where you're wanting them to go. Look at the current practices. You start assessing the current capabilities. Is the project manager you're hiring right now and the team members you're hiring right now more experienced or less experienced than, say, 5 years ago? If they're more experienced, then your process might be able to mature some that, and you have then can trust them to do some things that maybe you couldn't trust them to do before. So do you need 13 sign-offs? We all have sign-offs for different reasons, but some of it's like poke me in the eye if I have to have another thing signed off. It just gets crazy. Now, I'm not saying don't have sign-offs. Make sure that they make sense, okay? But you know what I'm talking about as well. There's sign-offs where you're waiting 2 days for somebody to sign this thing. Come on, we got to get going here. And then comparing the best practices. What are some best practices that we can look at in being able to deliver this type of project and learn? And once again, we're learning, a learning organization. We're going to learn from this project, and it's going to affect future projects. Project management tools. The tool you use, it seems to be what puts the constraints in how we do certain things. So if you use a Microsoft project, nothing wrong with that tool. It works well in some cases, but for some of you, it does not work very well. Your project is not wired for Microsoft Project or Primavera or Jira or whatever the project software is that you're using. You want software that makes sense for the type of projects you're using. Hopefully you're not doing it all with stickies and a Post-it note over the top of your desk. If so, you're on medication, I'm sure, because that is a nightmare of an experience. I'm poking fun at you, but I've seen some wonderful project managers be able to do that. And so the software is such a more humane way of being able to do this. But your software, don't blow it off. Your software is still very important. Which software makes sense? And then now today, some people are actually buying services. And maybe you're buying a service to where you run your projects based on what that service provides and those templates. Nothing wrong with that. So you look at current environment, look at the requests, the recommendations that people are making, look at the PMO prescribed tools. And so in other words, you're trying to get people to use similar tools, even though it might not work in every case. I don't want to say that, but there is something to be said when everybody's using a similar tool. I can look at your tool. I know how to use your tool. Any questions I have, I can find that information quickly. Look at the general types of them. So let's talk about real quick here. The first one obviously is paper-based, and most people want to get away from paper-based tools. To show up at a meeting and have 100 pages of paper to show a status meeting or a Gantt chart is really a thing of the past, as you already know. And so we want people to be able to pull it up on television in a meeting room and talk about the changes, but it's coming from a laptop or it's coming from a PDA or something like that. Automated tools are going to be one of those pieces here, and let me come back to that topic. Web-based tools is very common today. Those of you who are buying web-based services, you already are using this, and you're using it you're probably singing its praises in most cases. If not, then look at other web-based tools. And then PDAs are wireless tools. You're running it with your phone or checking something with your phone. Let's go back to automated tools. Automated tools, you're going to see change in the next 18 months. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to change that area alone. The ability for artificial intelligence to be able to track so many different components of your project is going to be wonderful for you, because rather than a go get and see what's happening in my project, it's going to be sending it to you based on triggers. So what you're going to see over time here is that you're going to see AI all of a sudden triggering something and mentioning that this risk looks like it's escalating, yet nobody on the team noticed it. It's going to be telling you that maybe the vendor is struggling with something because of the type of communication that's coming back and forth, and you didn't catch it. So AI is going to open up some of these doors. AI is not going to be perfect on everything, because you still need somebody looking at it. You know what I'm saying here. But the ability for some of the Mickey Mouse stuff it sucks down our day trying to figure out stuff, some of this is going to be triggered with some of the AI material and some of the AI tools. You probably have noticed in the last 6 months the enormous amount of AI tools that have just exploded on the scene. They're exploding even in the area of project management. And so it's becoming very, very real that this is going to have an impact on us, and your PMO has to be able to take a look at it as well. Now, you select project tools. So you assess specific project tools. So what's their function, feature? What's the vendor? And by vendor, let me talk about something. Is this a vendor that looks like they have longevity? You're not wanting a vendor that's going to go out of business next year after you buy, after everybody's bought that particular software or that particular service. Implementation, maintenance costs, customization, a lot of these are going to make a difference. And the customization might not mean anything to your organization, and it might mean everything to somebody else's, because your projects are so strange compared to the normal project. It has to be customized very specifically. I was blessed a couple of years ago now to be able to do some training for a group of people who are running projects out of Australia. So they flew everybody into Indiana, And so went to Indiana and trained them, and they were just wonderful. But they're all running they're running drug trials. Their project is a drug trial. And these are some of the brightest people I have ever seen in my life. And so they were all talking about the drug that they were testing. They run it like a project. And so their project, you think about it, it's very customized. It's very specific to what they're having to do and what they're needing to do and what their industry calls it. Where yours might be pretty standard. Acquiring the project tool. Decide on tool acquisition. This is where we're going to purchase it. What's the purchase of it? What's the maintenance of it? Sometimes purchase is low, maintenance is high. But the point is that are we going to be able to use this tool for everyone, or is it just going to be a pocket of people? And so it might be that we buy a different tool that everybody's using rather than one just for our pocket of projects. And so something for you to consider if you're a PMO. Implementing the tool. After you get the tool, you know as well as I do, now we got to train everybody and plan the training for that. So advanced announcement, senior management endorsement, implementation schedule, user training, and then planning the transition from what we're using right now, Post-it notes and Excel sheets, over to we're going to use this particular type of software. And be prepared for some people to be critical. Well, I've always used a Post-it note and Excel. Good. And we're going to try to use this. Let's see if this won't make it easier for us. And so you have to be positive and upbeat and encouraging all the way through, just like you do on any of the other transitions that we have. Standards and metrics. Okay, so the PMO is so important in not only bringing all the templates together and bringing all the methodologies and making sure that we're running as lean as we possibly can, but you are probably going to be the one making recommendations for standards and metrics. Now, in this area, this is where this falls apart a little bit, because what we do is we look at time, and we look at cost, and we look at risk, and we look at quality. And so we measure that because management has measured the exact same thing, okay? So sometimes what we're having to do, we're having to expand the standards and metrics that we're following, not because anything we've done in the past is wrong, but because we're measuring newer stuff. And so implement the project management, determine the metrics, set requirements, and introduce and use metrics. For an example, on Scrum and Agile, you might be measuring burn up and burn down charts, number of user stories, how much do we still have on the backlog, burn up and burn down charts from backlog charts. You might find yourself measuring all kinds of other things from a quality standpoint that maybe you've never done before. Quality is always an important piece for every project that we're doing. So your standards might need to shift as well, because some of the Mickey Mouse stuff might be taken care of by AI, so that you are free to be able to measure some of the more complex stuff. Guidance metrics. So enables the PMO to set performance requirements and expectations, include thresholds, constraints, scope, duration, maximums, minimums, averages for the project, business, and technical performance. This is where you're really going into an analysis mode. You're getting to a place to where now you're looking at how to influence the project culture itself. And this is what most PMOs want to do, but we don't seem to be able to get there. You want to be able to influence that culture to where you've got educated people running the projects, you've got experienced people, but also to where they understand what those guidelines and what that box is that they have to run the projects in. Not just the rules, but the minimums and maximums of what they have to produce. And so, in other words, my management of them is going to be at a higher level than what it is right now. Right now, are you on time? Are you on budget? How much scope creep did you have? What risk happened this week? Where down the road, I might be talking to them, what kind of triggers are you seeing happen? Are you seeing anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? You feel uncomfortable because the project is doing something or not doing something. So you're managing them at a higher level. Measurement metrics indicate performance results, trends, achievements, discrepancies, variations, exceptions. And we measure some of this for sure. But when we start talking about trends and we start talking about variations, this is where that variance analysis is coming in. And of course, we want tools to be able to help us look at that variance analysis. How bad is bad? I mean, that's really what we want to know. And how good is good? But we seem to focus on the bad, don't we? How bad is the bad stuff? What's the gap? And then, do we have a plan to be able to get that gap caught back up in the next 3 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it is? The analysis of that is going to change the dynamic of how we look at it. Then implementing the project management standards, examine standard sources. So primary purpose of introducing standard is to improve the project, improve the technical piece, and the business performance. We want to be able to do projects that make sense and deliver them in a manner that makes sense. I don't want to burn all my people out. I don't want to have all my subject matter experts leaving the organization. And so if we get too out of balance here, you'll notice that you'll have that happen. People will start leaving your organization. Or if they work for government, they'll still be with government, but they'll go to work for another agency rather than yours. So you're wanting that balance there. That's what happens so many times to our subject matter experts. Maybe not yours. Maybe your organization does a great job with it, but many struggle in these particular areas. The standard sources, consider the practices, project management practices. For an example, as we talk about making changes to your project management methodology, maybe your particular company is not even close to even being open to that. And so you've got to do some groundwork just to get them thinking about it and talking about trying to bring in some type of change-driven component, such as Scrum or Agile or hybrid. And so those are some discussions that might take a year to do, might take 18 months before you're ever being able to start shifting. Technical capabilities, project management competencies, how much experience do your project managers have? For an example, I've said this before, and the reason we do this to pass on competencies to you, but you have access to every webinar we have done. I think we're up to 46 that are on our website for free. And you can pull a webinar off. All of them are in the same format that we have right here. And so we have 1 hour, about 55 minutes of it. We talk about whatever that topic is. And so you can bring those into your meetings or have your people watch them individually. All of those are on our website for free for you to be able to pass on some of the training and some of those topics to your people. Identifying applicable standards. Project management procedures, management tools, project performance, technical performance, individual performance, product service quality. Now, many of you will be brought in 18 months or so to look at how and where your company is going to use AI. But AI can be used in the project management world. And so there's a handful of text starting to come out that's not all fluff. It's actually giving you some substance. And Wiley just published a text that just came out last month on AI and project management. And so Wiley Publishing just published this. And so this is an academic publisher, and it's really good. I'm right in the middle of it right now. And so one of the things that you're going to need to do, besides implementing AI in many of your situations there, but you're trying to look at how can AI influence our projects. And so that's going to be a project, an internal project you're going to be doing, but something for you to start looking at and trying to get up on those particular characteristics so you're ready to go when that does happen. Then you're trying to look at preferred standards, stakeholder agreements, planning for the implementation, whatever type of implementation, and trying to shift the PMO to be more mature, more competency-based. All of that will help you over time, but it's still going to take time. None of these are going to be super fast projects. And then after you make the change, guess what? You got to go back to benchmarking again. What are you doing? You're providing for measurements to verify applicable standards are being achieved. We thought this change would bring this achievement. Did it or did it not? It might be different, but still not be achieving what you want. We do that all the time in projects, don't we? We made a change. We assume that it's going to be good, but it ends up not being good for some reason. And then determining project metric requirements. Identify process improvement, performance metrics, business metrics. All of these will be having some changes probably in the next 18 months as well. Because as you change your projects internally, guess what? Your businesses are going to do something a little different with AI. And it might change what processes you use. Because if AI can do some things and we're not having to do this or track that, then there might be some processes that are now taken care of by AI that I'm not having to follow or track at this particular time. Also, metrics can be used to facilitate decisions, obviously, specify project classifications, provide common understanding of project and activity status, manage project performance, convey a concept or a model. You are going to be the one driving this if you have a very strong PMO. You're going to be the expert in project management. So let me make some suggestions here. You have to get yourself trained up to where you're ready to go. You know about these things. Now, the truth is, these things are changing so stinking fast that every 6 months, some of the tools that are out, especially in the area of AI, some of the tools that are out, you've got competing tools that are coming back against this, and their tool is now better, and then another tool. So you're seeing it pivot back and forth in so many of these things. But the point is that you are updated on it with an understanding that we are evolving into all of this technology that's here. And then monitoring the consistency and the improvement. Did we actually improve or did we just do it differently? We want to be able to improve. Determining the trends. What's the new trend? You might be tracking something that's a totally different trend than what you've ever done before. And making sure we still comply to everything that we say we will for standards. And also, are we determining the capability? Are we still capable to deliver these type of projects? And what type of performance goals do we have? All of these have the potential of changing as you make some of that shift. So just something for you to consider at this stage. Then, when you look at the project performance metrics, we've always done budget and schedule, and management does this. And so you're going to continue to do that, of course. But it could make a difference on resources. For an example, how many hours are our people working on these projects, and how many projects do they have? Could it make a difference on the triggers for risk? And are we being able to catch our risk earlier? How are our risk solutions working? What about our quality and quality assurance? Did our quality go up? Did our quality remain stable? It definitely should not have gone down, and that's going to make it even worse. So all of these are pretty standard things that we have had a tendency to look at. So all of these will be stable, but what you're looking at is what else do we need to measure for some of these? And then, for an example, the business metrics that we were talking about. This might be something you're exposed to that you've never had to look at before. Contract and agreement metrics, customer satisfaction metrics, project portfolio metrics, financial metrics. So when you start looking at so many of these different things, all of this can make a difference. Many of you probably have just read this. Google is concerned over ChatGPT, which is going to be rolling out a new search engine. And so people are already about 55% of the Gen Zs and about 30% of the millennials are already using ChatGPT in place of Google for searching. Now think about this. $175 billion company who has been the big dog in search engines for the last 12 years. Think about it. And then ChatGPT is giving them a run for this with rolling this out. So it should be rolling out probably in the next 2 weeks is what they think. But think about what's just happened here. You've got a whole different player of projects that's going to happen. Google looking at having to be on the defensive now, where they've been the big dog for all this length of time. And then as soon as I read that, I thought it was interesting. The news then reports over the lawsuits with Google because they feel like they haven't played fair. And I thought, oh my gosh, don't you know it's tough around Google right now? Of course it would be, because you've got a competitor, and plus the government's thinking that you didn't play fair all these years. But the point is, we don't know whether that new software or the new search engine from ChatGPT is going to do everything that you hope it will do, but just the foresight that that's going to be coming will cause people to look at things a little different. Identifying process improvement metrics. Those of you who are using Six Sigma and are already involved in process improvement, you live by this. I've spoke at your companies, I've been with you. You guys you men and women live by this all the time. You're looking at how the process can change. But not everybody does that. And some of the processes we have in place need to change. They need to change. We don't even follow them sometimes, even though they're documented. We do something different. That's the piece that makes us kind of vulnerable. And that's the piece that probably needs to be updated. So you've got technical processes, business, resource management processes, PMO support processes. What's there? Are we following it or not? If we're not following these, then that tells you that that process is outdated and we need to do something different. All right, then you're looking at these metrics. So establishing metrics and measurements plan. So measurement sources. Brief description of the metric and its intended use. What project data are used to measure the metric? This is a little bit harder to come up with sometimes, because as you start looking at the metrics we're going to deliver for this, that metric might not even be collected right now. So what do we have to collect to know if that's happening? And that's going to change the dynamics of some of what you're doing, because you might not be collecting it right now. Measurement levels, level of detail, type of data to be obtained. Now, don't collect everything. I mean, my goodness, we could be inundated with a 100-page report every day on what the metrics are. That might be overkill, and probably is overkill for most of your projects. But which of these metrics makes sense for what we're trying to deliver or what we're trying to do internally with our organization? And that's what you're looking at. Which metric makes sense with this? Measurement frequency. How often are we going to measure this? Are we doing this daily? All of these things that we're able to switch over and allow AI down the road here, and this is down the road for many of these, to trigger and to send us automatically is going to be a winner for you, because you're not having to go get this stuff. But there's still going to be some stuff that you're having to go out and find, and you're having to set it up because you want to measure something that's not been measured before. Measurement performers. Who's responsible for conducting the measurement? So that might be you, it might be somebody on your team. And then measurement consumers. Who should receive the data or the reports of this measurement? So this is going to definitely be you if you're a project manager, but it could be your team, it could be management, it could be the quality people. The point is, it depends on what we're measuring as to also what kind of what and who will be getting this type of information. Because once again, they're going to look at it a little differently. And so if you start, you'll see some triggers here and you think, wow, I never even noticed that that was happening before. Then you start comparing the metrics and the performance. The PMO is the hub that's going to help with this interpretation. They'll be able to perform a comparative analysis on the project, the technical side, even the business side of what we've done in the past and what we're doing right now. And they ought to be able to do this. For an example, let me give you one that I see that we are not very good at most of the time. Not being critical, but see if this is different for you. So we create a business case and we say that our project is going, after this project is complete, that we can move 10 people off of doing this because we're automating the system, and those 10 people can work someplace else. So we finished the project. Did we take those 10 people off of that? Are they working someplace else, or is 5 of them still working with that particular old system? If they did, then we didn't really achieve what we thought we did when we sold the project to the customer, to the management. If we're doing it internally, we told them we thought we'd get rid of 10 people, we only got rid of 5. Now, we had some success, but we didn't have all success. Also, let me go one more and then we'll move on. Let's say if you'll invest your money in this, then in 3 years, you will make back $1 million. Okay, did you make the million back at the end of year 3? And so you say, well, no, we just broke even. Okay, so there's another example. That's a measurement that we need to see. We are measuring stuff or giving metrics up front that we say is going to happen or perform in a certain way. Did it perform that way? Because that's part of the educational piece. Why did it not perform that way? If we put $1 million in and we were supposed to make our money back in 3 years, why did we not get it back in 3 years? And so it allows you to be able to not point fingers and, okay, the firings will continue till morale increases, not that kind of silly stuff, but it does allow you to be able to look at some things and say, okay, we've got some gaps here. We've got some training components here that would help us. Establish corrective action. We want to correct things, make it run as smooth as possible, on not only just on the immediate project, of course, but on all the processes, on all the procedures we're doing in project management today. I bet you if I pulled you together in your organization right now, and I said, give me 3 things about the way you run projects that need to change to be more efficient and effective, you'd be able to come up with those 3. And then to talk about those on how to be able to flesh that out and put it into an action plan. It would be huge for you to be able to do something like that. And I bet you've got 3, and it would be worthy to look at those 3 because that efficiency would be there. And then you know what? Down the road, we do it again. What 3 things? If we change right now, would make our projects run better. And that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at 15 things. Okay, I want 25 things that we could do better in our projects. Forget that. That's crazy. Give me 3 that we can implement, and then you'll start seeing your organization moving in that direction. Project auditing. Listen up, all of you talking about and working in PMOs. As much as you don't like to audit, auditing's part of the deal with the higher level PMOs for sure. The audit is not just when things are bad, okay? You are auditing good projects, good project managers, good teams. You're auditing good vendors to see what's going on. But you set up a project auditing capability, you conduct the audit, and you manage the auditing results. It allows you to be able to do a spot check on the project, and it allows you to make some recommendations or to get some early warnings of something happening on that project so that you have the capability of making some suggestions before something bad goes wrong. It is a great tool for you. So you set up the project auditing capability. So you establish a project audit performance points, routine project audit points, triggered project audit points, and discretionary project audit points. So routine, we're just going to drop in on our projects. We audit all of our projects once a year. That'd be routine. Triggered. we've had 3 risks that have hit that have surprised us a little bit. So we're going to do a modified audit of the project and just make sure everything else is running correctly. Why did you do it? The trigger was the risk. Or, we're 15%. Once you hit the 15% over budget, that triggered an audit, a modified audit for us to make sure we're on target here. So you can have that trigger for anything. Scope creep, you could have it for schedule, overage, you could have it for a budget. And then the discretionary project audit. In other words, we haven't audited your project, so we're going to audit your project next month. Just want to give you a heads up. Nothing wrong, nothing bad. We're going to audit and check and do spot checks for everything. And so all of these can have some very beneficial. You got to watch it and not be heavy-handed on everything, obviously. And somebody says, well, Big Brother's watching. You're right. Big Brother watches all the time. And we should be. We're running that project. We should be accountable. And then conducting project audits. In conducting the project audits, prepare for project audits and reviews, identify, convene the auditor, the auditing team, plan the audit, conduct the audit. This is like a mini project. If you've not done an audit before, it's a mini project because you've got some material that you're looking at before you actually go in and do the audit with the team and with the project manager. And you've got questions you're going to be asking specifically as you do some of this. So you want to be prepared. You're not doing this on a wing and a prayer. Hey, just thought we'd stop by. No, this is not even close to what you're wanting to do. You want this to be, let them know what you're going to be looking at and talking about so that they're prepared too. You want it to be very professional, but at the same time, it is, Big Brother is watching. Of course they are. And then conducting the actual audit. So let me give you a couple of suggestions, and yours might be much more extensive than this, and I get it. Interviews. You'll normally have some interviews, not just on the day that you're showing up, but you might have some pre-audit interviews, interviewing people on what went wrong, what happened with the risk, what could they have done better, different. Observations. You've noticed certain things happening. They're lagging behind on giving status reports, or they're lagging behind on having their meetings. I mean, that a lot of times will tell you something about the project. Documenting the reviews, analysis, internal audit feedback. It allows you an opportunity to look and see what the documents are saying that they are writing about the project and that they're putting in. And so this allows you to be able to look at anything, any type of feedback that they're documenting for any reason whatsoever. And then preparing the project audit report. This is normally a multi-page report. It could be anywhere from 3 pages to 30 pages, depending on the size of the project. So you want more brief, obviously, because you want an executive summary to take care of it, because upper management's not going to read all that stuff unless the project's sinking bad and has a lot of money. Then they're going to read everything. But most of the time, they're going to read that executive summary, ask a few questions, and then that's fine. They feel like you're watching it, you're doing due diligence. But you're looking at the auditing approach, the audit findings, the recommendations, and so you are positioning yourself like an internal consultant at this stage, making recommendations of what should happen in this project. And you should be, because you are with the PMO. And this is where PMOs are actually heading, if they're not already there in so many cases. All right, so let me mention a couple of things. I see a couple of you have some questions. I'll give you a chance to ask any question you want. So in June 3rd, our next webinar, we're talking about Metrics Magic is what it's entitled, Unveiling Essential Agile Measures for Informed Decision-Making. So this is going to be June 3rd. We'll be talking about what metrics we need to measure with Agile. Those are a little bit difficult sometimes, and so we'll explore that a little bit. Also, those of you who are going to want to be part of the mastermind group, this is free. We have 2 more mastermind groups this year, one in May, just starting next week, and then one in September. The mastermind group is free. It's 5 days long. It's about an hour a day for 5 days. You're able to, you can just sign in anytime you'd like and be able to do the stuff. And so we talk about your application. We talk about give you some exposure to some questions from PMI so that you can kind of take a practice test of 25 questions. I do 2 Zoom calls next week, so that I can talk with you and answer any question. But we kind of use it as a coaching method to kind of help you pull your ideas together for getting your application in. We also do a drawing on each of these, and so we give away a free scholarship. So there are 2 people, one in May and one in September, will be coming to the boot camp for free. And so that's a little bit of a motivation for you to be there. I think I've got 26 people in the mastermind group for next week. And so somebody will go home with a free scholarship to attend the PMP exam prep boot camp. So they get to pick whichever one they want to come to and work it out. But we give one away. That way it's a little bit of an incentive there. And then these are our virtual PMP exam prep boot camps. We do it about every other month. So we've got one in June still coming up, August, October, and December. And so all of these include your newest information from PMI. All the changes from 2022, when they made the changes, have been implemented. And of course, they've changed it three other times with little tweaks along the way. But this will give you the newest material, newest information as you take that and as you participate. And we have some group activities that help you really well. Plus, you have 400 questions we have purchased from PMI that you will be taking in the class, 100 in the class, and then you have 300 you will take after the class that will help prepare you for the PMP. PMI says that the first-time passing rate, they advertise this in their reports, you probably read it, is 60% first-time passing. We're hitting a 97% first-time passing rate since 2022. So that allows you, for anybody who's nervous about taking that, it gives them an opportunity to be in that. All right, so let me open this up for some questions here. And I see a couple of questions. Let me get my glasses on so I can see here. So I had a question in the chat. So let me get over here to the chat. Got multiple screens here real quick. So what's the name of the Wiley publication? It's called AI and Project Management. And I can't think of the actual author, but if you send me an email, I'll tell you what it is. But it's AI and Project Management, and so it just came out last month. So if you go to the Wiley website, I think it's the only one Wiley has, and so it's a 2024 publication. But it is excellent. Like I said, I'm right in the middle of it, and but it is excellent. Other questions? Any other questions from anybody? All right, well, let me thank you so much for being here and being part of this. And so I hope it brings value to you. We've been doing this for a lot of years, every month. And so I wish you well. And so if you have questions or you have questions about this, about trying to make this transition, contact me. I'll be glad to give you some insights. Kim will be contacting you with a letter and with a link if you're wanting to show this to your people, if this will help them. So God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend then, okay? Bye, everybody. See ya.